Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. We are live. All right. Well, joining me here on the podcast, Electrify Expo, and we talk four wheels so much. This gentleman does four wheels, two wheels. He does it all. Just announced he's having a baby. Super excited. A great friend of mine. Can swing a club pretty well too. So he came and played my country club one time. But Cole Seeley is in the building. Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think our interests always align, so it's always good to hop on and chit chat about four wheels, two wheels, whatever it may be.
Talk some smack. And again, I right before we hit record and went live, I said not exclusive EV, but primarily EV. And I was talking to BJ Burtwell my last podcast, and I said, he's like, who do you think? I was like, oh, let's talk to Cole. So Cole, most recently, let's go right into it. EV stuff. You put up a video riding the cake bike, and there's a lot of noise in the dirt world and EV going into that space. What was, for people who haven't watched the YouTube video, maybe you could tease it as a little clickbaitish for those that are maybe want to know more information about it. What was your experience like? What do you think? What are your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Go.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack with
we got a moment.
So yeah, I mean, the EV, the cake build came about. Actually, it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. The company Cake, they invited me out to do it wasn't really a race. It was kind of like, I don't know. It was like an exhibition race, I guess. And it was super fun. Like I really hadn't been riding that much since I retired. So I hopped on that thing. I got to race with a bunch of my mountain bike buddies. And I think that's kind of where it perfectly aligns, is like kind of bridging the gap between the e-bike scene and the moto scene. Cause there's a couple different brands out there right now that are kind of doing the same style, where it's a little bigger than a mountain bike, but a little smaller than a dirt bike. And like I said, I had so much fun with it. And we kind of just stayed in contact, and they did a post, and I just direct messaged them like, hey guys, like, what do you think about me just kind of like modifying one of these and kind of making it my own personal kind of style, I guess. So they were all about it, and I have so much fun. My wife actually steals it probably rides it more than I do. So,
well, again, she's expecting, you guys are expecting. So how about let's just stay off that. So, so anybody who doesn't know Cole Seeley, former Supercross racer, again, into drifting. So that's kind of, we came and crossed paths via that. But then I love what you do. You have a particular style. You're kind of a soft-spoken gentleman, but when you talk about things that you're passionate about, you really kind of start going and talking about it. Your bike builds are really kind of cool, and it's just, there's so much noise, and I like how your actions speak louder than words. I really like the way you do things, so I appreciate that. So
yeah,
you're yeah, of course, man. And he's got an S15 back there, and he's got his Hondas, man. What are your thoughts on the EV space? Again, not just exclusive to Cake, but talking two wheels here primarily, so anybody that's listening knows you. So you kind of being and coming up through this combustion world, you're getting older. Again, you have no gray hair. You always had a great head of hair. What are your thoughts, and are you accepting of this coming into, let's just go for it, Supercross?
Yeah, you know what? It's like you said, there's so much to unpack in that concept, right? Like, I think when the world of motocross switched from two-stroke to four-stroke, there was a lot of pushback, and now two-strokes haven't gone anywhere. There's still a huge fan base in that section of the sport, and I think that's kind of where we're headed with EV. It's an entirely new concept, an entirely new, I don't know, change to the sport, just like four-strokes were. So I kind of go into it with an open mind in that aspect of like, all right, we did this with four-strokes. Is this what EV is going to be? And who knows, it might not be. And going back to like the Cake, and I know like Suron, and there's a bunch of other companies that produce these bikes that are a little smaller. As long as you like being on two wheels, I feel like there's room for it. Like I have just as much fun hopping on my Cake as I do, going shredding with my friends on a four-stroke or two-stroke or whatever it might be. There's room for it, and there's I don't know. I think people just need to have an open mind with it, and I think once you actually ride one, your whole perception on everything completely changes.
And that's what's interesting, right? Have you ridden a Livewire? Have you ridden a Harley Davidson?
I haven't, no, but
a Livewire. My bad. Sorry, it was launched as a Harley Davidson Livewire. They switched gears. Now it's called the Livewire.
Yeah, I haven't, but from people that have, and I've spoke with, they're like, same thing with when you hop on an EV dirt bike. It's all smiles. Like, you're just laughing because it's like, wow, you can have this much fun and not make any noise. Like, it feels illegal, but I don't know.
It's a different sensation, right? Because here's like you said, what a great analogy, two-stroke to four-stroke, the thumpers, right? The thump, 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 and then brap, brap, like going
Yeah.
from the brap to the thump, and now it's to the right?
Yeah.
Because
Literally no noise.
I announced Nitro Cross, and we literally just I was out at Glen Helen this past weekend. This is coming up in just a little bit, again, when this airs, but Nitro Cross is this 1,000 horsepower all electric vehicle, which, by the way, you should absolutely try to get a
Oh,
seat
yeah.
and talk to TP, dude.
That'd be
You'd
so
be
fun.
great. Oh
Yeah,
gosh,
no,
all
that'd
right.
be great.
I'm gonna make some calls. But what a different sensation, right? Because all you hear is the gravel machine gun, just a
Yeah,
right?
no, it's same thing, like, the same thing transferring over to electric dirt bike. It's like you hear more chain slap, you hear more rocks hitting the fender, like, there's a totally different sensation, but again, like, going back to it, like, don't don't can it until you actually get on one and try it, because it's so fun. Like, I've just, like, whether it's street bikes, dirt bikes, anything, and mountain bikes, I love being on two wheels, and I think that enthusiasm and that passion for just being on two wheels, it's just another thing to do. Like, it's another
Yeah.
way to have fun and get your, I don't know, your smiles out on two wheels.
Yeah, more smiles for miles, and I think that, we're big at, obviously we're kind of glasses half full kind of guys right now talking about EV. It's in it. It is, right there in front of us. It's happening, right? And it's just this shift. What are some bad things about EV, or basically, like, I love to play devil's advocate right now because we're kind of on the up and up. But
Yeah.
what are maybe some things that, again, not shooting holes in the cake program or any of the Stark or anything like that? What are some things that are maybe missing for you?
The sound, first and foremost.
Oh, that's always
I
it's
think
always the damn
I think
sound.
I think, like, especially coming from, like, the drift world, right? Like, hearing a Jay-Z or an SR fire up and just hearing that I don't know, that signature tone. I think that's
Okay.
what I miss when it comes to four wheels. And two wheels, same thing. Like, hearing a two-stroke, hearing a four-stroke, something that just sounds like it's tuned, like, perfectly. I think that's probably what you're gonna miss the most. But once you get past that, I don't think there's many downsides to it.
Yeah, and I saw it's so funny because there's now companies that, just SEMA show just passed here a little bit ago, and Electrify Expo is going and growing. Need to get you out there to one to an event, but now here's major companies like Magnaflow making speakers that
Yeah.
create the exhaust note, which it could sound like
I
Mario
had that
Brothers.
actually. I had a BMW i8 for a little
I was
bit.
gonna
And then
bring it up. I was gonna
yeah.
bring it up, and you told I remember this, and I'm glad you did, but
Yeah.
elaborate on your BMW i8 experience.
Yeah, I remember, like, finding out that they had fake sound in the speakers, and I was like, "This is stupid. I wonder if I could deprogram." Like, I was so mad about it, but I mean, it is definitely a part, like, when you go full electric, that you're gonna miss. Another downside, I think, is charging. Like, I think that's kind of, we're so new to that. Like, I think Tesla and a couple other major car brands are on the forefront of that, of, like, figuring out how do we charge faster? How do we hold our charge longer, especially when it comes to towing? Um, I think we're really early on that, so I think that'll probably be a problem that gets solved here pretty quick. But yeah, just to kind of, like you were saying, playing devil's advocate is, like, I think that's probably another downside to it, but I think
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
And you come from this, and again, having you on, I wanted you to just come as an enthusiast, somebody that had a career in Supercross and is still, you know, again at a different chapter in your life. Again, being a husband, being a father, soon to be, all these things equate. You're a young adult still, and you've seen. Saw Troy Lee the other night at actually Electricana too. Saw Ken Block's newest video, his last video, RP KB forever. Had Lucy in the blocks over last night, actually,
Oh,
after Nitro
nice.
Cross. Yeah. But you come from this enthusiast standpoint. So that's why I really kind of wanted you on. So what are you, and also what is Cake allowing you to do to that bike in this video? Again, I feel like, hold on, everybody listening right now, go ahead and go watch this Cake YouTube video. But
Yeah.
for those that haven't,
Yeah,
what
basically what I did was pretty much what I do with all my builds, is just disassemble it and kind of personalize it with colors and powder coat and stuff like that. And kind of all my builds, there's never really, like, I come from the car world where it's like, project car is never finished. I feel like that's how all my
it's a piece
builds
of
are.
art.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd like to. They're pretty open with me doing anything. Like, I don't really have any rules per se to it. Just don't throw a gas powered engine in it, probably. But yeah, no, I want to. I'd really like to figure out a way to fit a different style of suspension onto it, just to say I can really, like, the suspension that comes on it is good. They come with Ohlins too. Like, you can buy the
Oh
fully
wow.
loaded one with Ohlins. I would like to kind of, go into the mountain bike side of things and maybe try to fit like a set of downhill Fox short forks on it and maybe a different
What's
shock.
it
Like,
weigh? What's the bike weigh?
I don't know. It's pretty heavy though.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's
all EVs are, yeah. And
yeah,
then
that's the whole conundrum, right? Is like the battery is the engine. So you're talking about like, oh, everybody thinks it's no, it's significant.
yeah, and then I've really gotten into and studied design, like as far as like mechanical goes, and so I designed a set of brackets to fit a number plate on. And then I designed a set of number plates out of carbon fiber and had them cut. So that was kind of like my touch on it. Was like, it's a dirt bike, it should have number plates. So I went ahead and threw those on. But other than that, like I'm always gonna, like I said, it's always gonna be a work in progress. Like I have so many ideas, and especially like they want me to, they're completely open to all the content that I want to make on it, but I really want to do like some street edits on it. Unfortunately, right now we're buried in about a foot of snow up here in Idaho, so that's got to kind of wait. But yeah, it I don't know. It's just, it feels illegal to ride it. Like, if like I can just cruise it down the street, and you're not
Huh.
making any noise, you're not disturbing any piece. It's just like riding a bicycle, and it feels illegal, but it's so much fun. Like going back to that, just like two wheel enthusiast, like it just another way to kind of, another outlet to be on two
Like you
wheels.
said, the giggles, right? Because
Yeah.
the Surons are getting such a bad rap. You see these videos, and we've had some great guests on here between Super 73, Jackrabbit. That's a different kind of bike. Here's just all these different tools for the job.
Right.
Um, how do you think it'd handle the sand? Because I know, obviously here you're a Southern California kid, as you said, you moved up to Idaho right there, talking about the snow. How do you think they'll handle sand and all that kind of experience? Or,
That's
you
a
know,
good question. I haven't even thought about that. Maybe
paddles?
throw a paddle on it, and maybe a bigger front tire too, because you don't want a pizza cutter kind of digging you into the sand too much. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to try that out. There's some sand pits around here. I can go experiment, do some
Yeah, I
homework.
know, right? There's a bunch up there. What do you so you talk about mountain biking, you're in Idaho. What are some other EV toys that excite you right now outside of cake? Is it just, you said your wife steals it, she's out there riding, but is there is there any other toys that you kind of excite you in the EV space?
I mean, other than cars and bikes, I don't really know. I mean, it
One
one
wheels?
thing about yeah, right. One thing about the EV too, like what we're seeing with the younger generation, I think is really cool. Like with Stasic, I think it's so awesome. Like not only like do you get to experience like balancing from a young age, then you upgrade to the electric ones. It's we're gonna have like a new generation when these kids are like 16 to 20 that are just going to be unbelievably talented when it comes to like racing moto or BMX, like doing tricks on a BMX bike. They're just gonna have another level. Like we never had that. Like you just waited till you were big enough for a PW, and that got us so far. But man, it's gonna be really really cool to see here in like the next like decade or so. These kids growing up that got to like, I don't know, from like 3 and 4, just like ripping around on these Stasics.
Right, and literally, I got a text from my buddy Jacob Agajanian, who is president of Race Service. He's like, "Hey, what's the balance bikes?" I was like, "Going electric, or you go?"
Yeah,
His boys just celebrated their birthday, and I was like, "We go Stasics if you want." He's like, "No, I'm talking balance bikes and stuff,
yeah,
and Striders, that kind of going analog." He said, and
yeah.
but the Stasics have absolutely grown my now shoot 10-year-old, and you sent Parker your day in the dirt helmet, which is still
Oh yeah,
yeah, dude, I appreciate that.
yeah. No
Um,
worries.
what do you let's shift gears here, no pun intended. Supercross. What's the state of Supercross? What's the state of dirt bikes in general, competition? What's going on? What are your thoughts, man? Are you still watching it, or you're kind of that
Oh
guy like,
yeah.
ah,
It's nice to watch it now. It's a
yeah?
little hard to watch it because I don't know who to root for, because it's like guys that I raced against. So I'm like, don't want them to do good because I always wanted to beat them. But then I'm like, you know what? They're all buddies of mine. So, but yeah, they just had a race in Paris where the Stark Varg raced in an exhibition race, I believe. It wasn't really eligible for 250, 450 yet because they don't really know where to place it. And like you can't beat it off the starting line. It's literally like, when you're driving an electric car, it's just all the
Yeah,
power right away. So
yeah.
I don't really know. I know it's going to find its way into one of those classes eventually, which will be really cool to see. And I don't know. I don't know where it would stack up and put a really good guy on it against a really good guy on a 250 or 450. It's probably gonna be pretty close.
Yeah, I'd love to see one kind of in a straight rhythm type experiment
Yeah,
first,
that'd be really
right? And
cool.
I was out in New Zealand with Mad Mike, and we were watching old school straight rhythm stuff with the two strokes and Travis with that. insano bike that he
Yeah, the
built. And
500.
yeah, it was so
Yeah, it's
silly.
wild.
Yeah, and what's the French cat that just dominated out there?
Musquin.
Yeah, Musquin.
Yeah, yeah.
Just absolutely dominates at street rhythm. But so torque is there. Uh, battery attrition, right? So
Mhm.
laps, that's you touched on it early on about charging, range, because I mean, shoot, I mean, a supercross race on average is how long? I mean, because it's a time thing with
Yeah, it's about
laps.
22, 23 minutes. Yeah, that's
That's a
gonna be
lot.
tricky. Yeah, for sure. And like, I one of my biggest hobbies, especially when I was racing motocross, like I needed a hobby that was like low impact was RC cars.
I was just
And
gonna bring that up. I love
and
it.
knowing what I know from those, like you're trying to get as much power as you can. So like there's ways to trick it where like if you charge it really fast, like charge the batteries really fast, then you get a little bit faster of an output, like when it comes to power. So that'll be one thing where like your bike's gonna be really fast for the first 5 minutes and it's gonna slow down a little bit. So but like when we did the cake race, it was actually out in uh, close to San Diego, and they had like batteries, like pull a battery, put a new battery in. That's going to be another system where I don't know enough about the Stark Vargs. Maybe their battery is easily accessible, where you can just pop a battery out and throw a new one in. But that's majority of the problems right there.
Yeah, and Formula E is like that too, because I mean, it's just a mental thing, right? Like you said, here's your BMW that had audio for an exhaust note. The NSX was interesting to you. I remember you had that. You got
Yeah.
rid of that. You're a sensory guy. You're right on the cusp. Again, just for those that are listening, just throw it out there. They can look it up if you don't answer the question. So just tell
Yeah.
me, how old are you again, Cole?
I'm 33.
Yep, and you said it. You're 33 years old. I'm 45, and I say that you're on that cusp of not even knowing what a cassette is. I'm joking, but I'm
Right.
serious. So you're on that cusp of liking the analog feel because your grandpa, your dad, your parents, all these things. You have your younger brother. You're on that cusp of really kind of being on the old school meets new school
Yeah.
methodology. So I think that's what's really cool and refreshing to hear this. You're not, and sometimes it just depends on what you're exposed to or what you're capable of accepting. And I think the EV stuff can be so offensive to people, and I just don't know why that
Yeah,
is. And
that's it.
I
It's
love your standpoint.
definitely like a generational thing too, where I think the new generation's going to almost accept it more because like going back to what you just said, like I had an NSX, like $150,000 car. It was a great car, but like I wanted to modify it. Like I wanted to lower it. I wanted to put it on wheels, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like looking at all these wheels and stuff, I'm like, I can't do this to this car. So that's why I got rid of it because I'm like, I have drift. Like at the time, I had like 3 or 4 drift cars that I was like project cars I was building. I was like, I have so much more fun with just that raw, like minimal power steering, like lock diff, like just like I have my S15 street registered. That's like all I need in life is just like, oh, I want to go for a rip in a car. Like I can just take my S15 out. So, but yeah, as the new generation comes up, they're going to be more like used to that and probably more accepting of that just because that's what's available. Like you drive a early 90s or, even an early 2000s car, it's a lot different feeling. There's a lot more creature comforts nowadays that kind of take away from that analog, like raw feeling of driving a car.
Yeah, and every guest I've had on Electrify News, Electrify Expo podcast here is we talk about four wheels, or when we talk about two wheels, it's more of a kind of a recreational vehicle. And I think that with what's going on in the motorcycle space as you describe, Stark or Cake, it is actually, it's still recreational, but it could legit be like a motard bike, right?
Right.
Supermoto. Um, what Because again, in the vehicle space, we have conversations about petrol companies purchasing the accessibility to have charging stations. And this, because this experience, as you described, charging your car, it's not just filling up the tank. We need to have a mental shift.
Yeah.
So that poses the question to you is, because you worked with Honda for so many years, and you're emphatic about Honda, and you still work with them. You have a bike behind you. Are manufacturers, can you give us any news, or maybe you can introduce me to somebody? Are manufacturers taking a stance like Toyota, who is OG hybrid, like Dodge, who's saying we're going EV, or who, somebody like Ford is really throwing the whole range of a 1,000 horsepower crate engine, but also investing into the Mach E, which our buddy Von Gittin Jr. created. He's always a great unit of measure. Are two-wheeled dirt bike companies taking that approach like the OEs that you know of? And again, if you don't know,
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate it,
think
but what do
I
you
think
know?
Honda is probably at the forefront of that, mostly because they have the technology, right? Like they're first and foremost a car company, and they're a multi-billion dollar like manufacturing company. So they have the necessary resources and I guess like experience to really do it right. And actually, my old teammate Trey Kennard, who's the test rider for Honda now, he went over to Japan to race the new Honda EV bike against the 450s. You haven't seen that? You check it out. It's
No.
it's pretty sweet. Yeah,
We'll get
he
Trey on here. Let's
yeah
go.
he
Yeah.
he had a couple problems with I don't exactly remember what happened, but had some tip overs and stuff like that. But I mean, he was right there running with the best in Japan, and I think they have. I've done it before where it's like the last race is in Japan and they invite some outsiders to come over and race in their country. And it's like all Japan national. So Honda actually brought him over just to race that EV bike, and it looked really good. I mean, it looks exactly like a 450 right now, just EV powered, and all the trick suspension, all the trick parts, and Honda's going to do it right. They're not going to do anything half-assed. So
Yeah,
it's
no,
cool.
and that's it's such a great answer. I appreciate that. Some great insight there. Again, everybody tuning in, and again, I kind of ingest all of these things, and it's an educational process for anybody listening right now, which is always great. So, are you still working with Honda?
No, I still like am in
You're
like
kind of Switzerland in the whole two-wheel game now.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I came back and raced for a Honda back team, which was cool because I kind of got to interact with some of the Honda guys. But the Honda team, like especially the racing team in America, they're like my family. Like those guys are like I was with those guys for 5-6 years, and we even before that, like it was really a decade long of my career that I was just like you know associated with these people. And it's not like I like retired and like all right later, have a nice
Yeah.
life. It was I still that's when I go to Supercross, those are the first people that I go see. They're really like family to me. And but yeah, going back to like the EV, it's just so cool to see like a manufacturer really like they're not stepping away from what they're good at is producing dirt bikes, like combustion dirt bikes, and see them kind of step into this new realm of what the sport could possibly be and really do it right. Like seeing a kit of suspension on an EV bike is really cool. Like somebody like me who like does custom builds now, like that is really cool to see.
And exactly right. Talking about your application to that space, and you talked about Trey maybe dropping the bike or whatever, but I think that looking at former, you look at you watching Ricky Johnson being like, "Oh my gosh, how did they jump those? Like, how did they race those bikes?"
Yeah.
And have you ever ridden like an old school like that Ricky Johnson? Or I mean, even McGrath's bikes, like
Yeah, I mean that's
that.
this 93 or 94 sitting behind me. I haven't ridden it yet, but it's the snow came a little too early. But yeah, I mean I've ridden a few here and there. And it is crazy. Like Jeff Ward, who's
Yep.
the champion in the late 80s, early 90s, kind of that era where like I wasn't even alive yet. And then seeing like some of his bikes that I've seen that are on display, it's like, dude, how did you go that fast on like this technology? Like everything from like the seating position, the way that's changed to the steering rake, everything. It's just like I guess when you're a professional rider, you don't really like you really notice like all the finer details because you're so in tune. Like I could tell if you set my forks a millimeter higher or lower than what they're supposed to be, or if my sag was like a millimeter higher or lower. Like you're so in tune with your machine, and seeing what those guys did, it's like, dude, that is like badass. Like that is like as like somebody who's like so serious about this, and so were they. It's just a whole nother level. Like, and they didn't get the test days that we had where we're like dialing in the bike in every aspect that we can. It's wild. So to see like, I guess going back to EV, like what's the future? Like how, like, are they going to be adjusting the power curves? Like where we would, change a cam or change some type of ignition timing to like, I don't know, advance power in a certain area. Like how are they going to, handle that in the future?
Cole, we need to get you Nitro Cross. Just the way you just
Dude,
described
I,
that
I,
is
I want to so bad. So I was
come
doing a
out to
little bit of,
Vegas. I'll put a couple tickets at the door. I got you, but I
when is
can't get
it?
you in the car. When is the day? It's I believe it's we're coming up. But all that being said, I love this conversation because it's not scary to you. It's March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Oh, okay,
So,
sweet.
yeah, so come
Yeah,
party,
they'll
Dana
definitely.
White, we'll drink some Howler Head, and yeah, but, he gave away a Cybertruck, by the way, this weekend.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
segueing into four-wheel because you are such a wheel nut, what electric vehicle excites you? Talk about, you have an S15, which is registered in Idaho, which is, I mean, one of my Quan cars. I mean, GT3, Defender 110. Now I really love the Grenadier, but I love the Rivian truck. What kind of
Yeah.
vehicle, what EV vehicles excite you? Or you're kind of like, all right, that hit the mark.
I am really excited to see the Cybertruck on the road. Like, I haven't seen one yet in person, and that's probably one of the ones that I'm most excited about. Just because like I drive a truck every day. It's just they just seem like they really took the like theme of being the most like rugged truck you can be and like made that but with an electric engine in it. Um, some of the like what I really like is the hybrid like supercar like GT3 cars that you see. Like the coolest thing is like seeing them leave the pit in electric mode and then like fire up the engine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we going back to what we talked on earlier, like you mentioned Formula E, and I think that's kind of a great like it kind of like was a light bulb in my head where it's like that could be like there's so much talent in our sport right now and so few teams like that could very easily be its own class like an
Mhm.
electric until we kind of figure out where that's supposed to be. I think that would be actually a really cool thing to see is in an all electric class.
Yeah, and that's again, I had this conversation with Chip Pankow. He is a director of motorsport for Thrill One, and we talked about that and just if again, if you come to a nitrocross event, which I'm just such an advocate of, I really love what's going on between Formula Drift. We had Tyler or Travis Reeder, excuse me, Travis Reeder, which I love. I don't know why I said Tyler, but Travis Reeder had that electric Camaro.
Yeah,
In nitrocross, we have everything from Class 11 Baja Bugs to Group E 1,000 horsepower, and in
I was
between
really
you've got.
excited to see that at Long Beach. I was there, and I
Oh
think
yeah,
it malfunctioned or something like that, and I was like, man, that would have been really cool to see. Just like because there was I remember like I think back in like 18, I was watching so much YouTube because I was in a wheelchair for a couple months, and I remember I was like like literally at midnight when Hoonigan would drop their videos, I was like literally like click play. I was probably one of the first viewers.
you're
Those
awesome.
guys kept me entertained so well. But I remember them doing like an interview with a guy who brought in I think it was A86 with an electric engine with a mounted up to a full trans too. And I was like, that's really
Yep.
cool. Like a manual, like I don't know why they don't really offer that. Like I guess if you're
They
gonna
they
be
do
gear
now.
heat,
They do now, man. Again, listen to the podcast. We talk about that and talking about that sensation of that. You talk the biggest thing for again this transition. That's what it is. It's a transition, and it needs to happen. We only have one planet. You're about to be a father. These are the conversations we have on this podcast, which I really appreciate. The audio is number one. That's always the reoccurring theme. Is I need sound. I need this. It's a different sensation because Cole, again, without listening to other podcasts, which I'm just going to assume you haven't, but educating anybody who this is the first episode is we always bring up the audio. But imagine being in like a 64 Cadillac DeVille with an EV engine going down PCH.
yeah,
The engine is irrelevant. It's more of the sensory, right? So drop top, going down, going to Neptune's, right? Like just like being an episode of GTA. You're playing Grand Theft
that'd
Auto, right?
be kind of funny to have like what you're saying, like an old caddy with like no power steering, but it's an electric car and like
Right.
rowing gears still. That'd be pretty
Wouldn't
rad.
that be sick? So that's the picture we're painting here. So,
Yeah.
for anybody listening to this that's a fan of you, I feel like you're the Danny Rick of Supercross. It's like you get the third seat, and then oh, guess what? He hurt
Dude,
himself. You don't want anybody to get hurt, but Danny Rick comes in and
yeah.
makes everybody happy, man.
Yeah. Dude, Danny's he's so cool. I was actually on an Alpine Stars debut one time and I saw him. I didn't know like he was really a fan of moto and he was like waving and I was like
Me?
me?
You felt like the hot girl at prom. You're like, what?
I was
Me?
like, yeah, like we chatted for a while. He's such a cool dude. Like probably one of the like most humble, like nicest guys I've ever met.
Well, he's Australian. He's just a good dude. I mean, his
Yeah.
number is 3, not by accident. He loves America.
Yeah.
It's the italicized Dale Earnhardt 3.
Yep.
He got that Red Bull seat, now AlphaTauri, and like he's just such a lovable guy, as are you. And that's why I say that because you get I think you've had these like peaks and valleys in Supercross, and I'll text you, oh man, sorry. Yeah. injured, this, that. I mean, how tough is it? How tough is Supercross right now? Like,
Oh
what would you
man.
tell anybody that's, because again, we'd love for you to share this and get out there. So Supercross kids that are listening to you and saying, hey, I always say analogously, somebody's going to win the Masters. Again, we both golf. Somebody's going to win the Masters and say, I remember when blank took me to Top Golf, because that's the
Right.
generation we live in. So anybody listening now is going to be like, I remember riding my first Stasic, and now here's the electric class. But
Right.
also the tenacity, and like you said, respect where respect is due. Jeff Ward, Ricky Johnson, Jeremy McGrath, Ricky Carmichael, Bubba, all these cats. What would you say to somebody listening to this saying, I love Cole Sea, I love what he did, and now you go into Supercross 2023 or in the future?
Like you're saying from a fan perspective, or somebody who wants to make it in the Supercross kind
Somebody
of
who wants
world.
to make it in Supercross world. What
Man,
would you
it's
say?
the like Ricky Carmichael and I guess James Stewart too. They really like kind of changed the game, the way that they set the bar. Like, and it wasn't even like I look at like Ricky Carmichael, right? Like he is the greatest of all time, but he's not the most talented. He's probably in the top 0.0002% as far as talent, but what he lacked in talent, he overachieved in training, right? So like that's where the game changed, where it was like, oh, I can't just rely on my natural talent anymore because these guys are just going to outwork me and beat me. So that kind of like trickled down into my generation, where like I was okay on natural talent for like my first year, and then it was like, okay, well now everybody's living in Florida, now everybody's doing this and this and this, and I got really like involved in that of like, all right, like obviously like I'm the kind of guy where I know I'm not perfect. I know where like my flaws are. So I like hired a riding coach, hired a trainer. Cause if I write my own schedule, I'm not going to do it. Like somebody needs to hold me accountable. That was like the first thing I realized about myself when I turned pro is like, like it's not a party. Like you can't just go expect to just, show up at the race and do good without doing the work. And I had to surround myself with those kind of people and hire the right people to keep me accountable and keep me on track. And I was blessed with like a lot of good people that came into my life that did that like without me asking them to do, like team managers and trainers and people like that just kind of had my back even though like they barely knew me.
Mhm.
But then like kind of transitioning into the later stage of my career, it was like, okay, like I can't really do this anymore in California. Like I have to do the half year California, half year Florida thing where it's like you give up a lot of that, like, oh, like I get to race my dirt bike, that, and then like I get to go have fun and mountain bike and do whatever. Like you give up that part of your life. Like you're dedicated to this. This isn't just like, oh, this is fun. This is my full time job. I dedicate my life to this. I'm gonna live in a city where I don't know anybody, and
Yeah.
but it's gonna make up for it, and I'm gonna go further in the sport, and I'm gonna have more days being successful at this. So I think like to the average kid that wants to get into it nowadays, like the bar is so high that you just have to expect like this is gonna be my life. Like this is I you gotta really just like put your friends on the back burner, put everything else on the back burner, and dedicate your life to the sport.
And that's words of wisdom, man. Words of, and I'm sure the same sentiments are from that of current racers, past racers, and it's going to be the future. And again, that commitment, there are compromisations that are made to excel. And
Yeah.
it's not, I don't like to use the word sacrifice, because it's not sacrificing, it's a compromisation
Yeah, you're chasing
of
your
like you
dreams.
said.
It's
Yeah.
something that you want to that you and like it from somebody like me. Like I never thought like I was ever gonna go as far as I did, but it was those like sacrifices and that stuff that like I had to do to make it pay off. And like I should have never really been pro for more than 2 years. Like should have like I just kept getting breaks. Like I got really really lucky and really fortunate to meet the people that I did early on in my career.
I don't think it's luck, man. It is that hard work, and it's the opportunities that exist. So give yourself some credit, give yourself some flowers. But I think that, again, putting in the work, putting in the time, it's very important. The current status of Supercross. I was with Brian Deegan this weekend, talking to him. So did you watch the Mac and Deegs video? Eli Tomac and Hayden
Oh
Deegan, they were
no,
out.
I've been meaning to watch that. No,
It's
anything
really
with
cool.
Hayden's really cool. Like he's a insanely talented kid, and obviously like having a dad like Brian kind of pulling him in the right direction. Like Brian is so smart with that kind of stuff. Just like getting the right kind of content and like displaying yourself in such a cool way. Like I don't know. He's like that was one thing when I retired and I got to step away and hang out with people like that. Like Brian Deegan and Twitch were like, especially Twitch, like I got pretty close with him.
Yep.
They're such businessmen where they're like on the outside looking in, like, oh, these are just like dirt
They
bike
just
riders. They
smoke
do,
weed and hang out.
yeah, like
Right?
they
And
are
just like,
such
no.
businessmen and so freaking smart at like
Yep.
marketing themselves and making every cent that they make count.
Yeah, and I'm golfing with, Keith Sayers and Twitch on
Oh,
Friday.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitch is a good dude. I love that guy.
Yeah, and to that point is, Haley Deegan, so Brian was out here doing a nitrocross doubleheader weekend, side by sides, first time driving Group E. He was talking about this vehicle. He says, "Dude," and this feeds into your Supercross background, even Brian and Travis and what they were doing and their evolution. I think the electric bikes, if they can make them lighter, will be amazing, freestyle bikes. That
Oh
I
yeah.
right?
Do you know Matt Rabot at all? Red Bull
Matt
guy
Riddle?
from
Yeah, yeah,
Switzerland.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
he was like one of the first dudes to transfer over. I remember I
yep,
went to a couple races and he was doing some demos and he was on it was an Alta that was like the first EV dirt bike to come
yep,
out. He was already on one, flipping it, doing all the stuff, and like him and I actually like hung out with him a lot when I was like 15, 16 years old. He used to live at one of my best friend's house. And like, so I was like sitting on his bike, messing around with it. I was like, dude, why do you have a clutch? And he's like, it's just weird, like going up to a ramp and not like dumping the clutch. So he put like a dummy clutch with like a
just
spring in it.
just a placebo, a straight,
Yeah.
like, sugar
Literally,
pill.
all it
What?
was like a clutch perch with a spring on the backside of it so that it would like, you could pull it in, but it wouldn't do anything. Yeah.
But it has the torque right there on deck, and you
Yeah.
don't need to pop it.
Yeah, you don't need it, but he's just like, yeah, it just feels right. Like,
Oh,
because
how
he has flip
fun.
levers, like they put their flip levers up for doing any tricks where they need to like pull themselves back. Like
Yep.
traditional freestyle, they didn't have those. Like if you did a double knack, you need to run your clutch a little higher so you could like bend your wrist off of it. So I was like,
Wow.
why do you need this if you have flip levers? He's like, oh, I just like how it feels. Like it just feels like more like a dirt bike.
That's so crazy. Yeah, and yeah, so back to Deegan and seeing his generation of what's going on. And he was testing out at King of the Hammers. He did a doubleheader weekend. He's going out, Hayden's he's like, dude, he doesn't need any more help. So I talked to him about like what Haley's got going on. She's just dedicated to NASCAR. His youngest son, Hudson, is a big time chef, which I love.
No way.
But yeah,
He's dude,
because
he's so funny. I went riding at Deegan's house not too long ago, and like we're all gearing up to go ride the Supercross track, and Huxton's getting dressed, and I like look over, and he's got like two different socks on, like two different knee braces, like gets ready, and he's like, I guess this will work, and puts on two different gloves. He just doesn't care. He's like such a little. He rips though.
He
He's so
Grom.
fast.
He's a
Yeah.
Grom, and he's just a product of his environment, and that's why,
Yeah.
Brian, I need to have Brian on the podcast because he talks emphatically about his youngest. He's like, "I'm gonna get him in the dirt," because Danger Boy, he's dedicated two wheels. He's on it. He is just on one. He is destined for greatness. Davey Combs really defends. I love, Davey Combs, Racer X, DC. He's a good cat, and he really supports Danger Boy, and people kind of come at Danger Boy about getting passionate because did you watch that race where he like threw down his helmet? People are like, oh, what a crybaby. Did you watch that one? I can't remember what
Probably.
it
Yeah.
was.
I mean, I follow.
Outdoor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah. And
probably had.
people were just
Yeah.
throwing a lot of shade at him, and he was really quick to respond and say, hey, what are you talking about here, man? Like, this kid is going for it, and he's got a lot of targets on his back. Just like what is it, Jet and his brother. Those
Yeah.
guys are
Hunter.
crushing it.
Yeah.
Hunter.
Yeah.
What
I
do you
mean,
think of them?
they're unbelievable. Like they're just like seeing what Jet was able to do this summer, especially like obviously you can see that he's special like from years past, but like to see
Yep.
that, like, I mean, especially as somebody like me where I'm like, dude, I just did that. Like it is outdoor race is hard to finish. Like to the
Yeah.
average person to just say, hey, you're gonna go do 30 minutes plus 2 laps, and then you're gonna go back to the truck, and an hour later you're gonna line up and do it again. Like on the roughest, most grueling tracks you've ever seen. And then for somebody to just go like 22-0 and like barely look like they were trying is just like that's unfathomable. Like like Ricky Carmichael did it twice and Stewart did it once, and like I was too young to really like understand how incredible that is. And I think like I said, like somebody like me who's been in it, who's raced it, and like man, that's just like, that's incredible. Like, it's unbelievable.
It's really fun to talk about it because again, we started with EV, and like I said, not exclusive to EV, but this is where people are going to look back on those particular moments of time of the evolution of motorsports, and
Mhm.
also just being recreational and finding, like I said, the right tool for the job, and the cake bike, or if it's a Stark bike, and anything else like in the EV space that excites you. Like I said, talking about vehicles, but are you hearing murmurs of any other manufacturers or what's going on? You talked about anything else?
I haven't, but if I were to assume, I would think that Yamaha is probably going to be next to do it. They're already producing electric, pedal assist mountain bikes, and my good friend and ex trainer Brian Lopes is kind of the face of that, and I know that he has nothing but good things to say about like what they're doing. So I would assume that Yamaha is probably going to be the next on board, and like I said earlier, I think that there's space for it. I think if it doesn't fit in the 250 or 450 class or whatever you want to call it nowadays, is I think that there's probably like a Formula E type situation where it fits. And like I said earlier, it's like growing up with with the talent that I grew up with. There was there was a lot of talent. There was a lot of fast guys, a lot of big names. But now you grow up, like now you see it. Like if I was growing up today and going into that, into the sport kind of like my rookie year, it's everybody does their homework now. Everybody like has a training program. Everybody has like a team that's dedicated, and they've learned from the teams above them, and like it all trickles down, and it's like there's so much talent and so few teams that like you see a 20, like every year we line up for Anaheim 1, it's like, oh, this is the most talented field we've ever had, and it's like, wait, you guys say that every year, and like
Yeah.
there's
Well,
more
rightfully
space
so.
than, yeah, there's more than 22 like really talented racers in the world that could probably like benefit from an E class that you're still getting, not necessarily the top cream of the crop like factory Honda guys, but you're still getting like some really good racers that just like that need like an extra like stepping stool, I guess. They can prove
Yep.
themselves in that, and then they can move on to I guess what the pinnacle, whatever the pinnacle of sport is then.
Yeah, another rung in the ladder, right? And just climbing
Yeah.
up. But what's also cool about this is, my buddy Randy Johnson, who grew up in the karting world and worked in Indy and all that stuff. He loves Honda. He's emphatic about Honda, regardless of who races it, right? It's like you're a
Yeah.
Ferrari guy in F1, you're a Ferrari guy. It doesn't You might be like, I don't love, I'm not going to name names, but or like people don't love Max, but you
Yeah.
hate him because you ain't him because he's so damn
Oh
good.
yeah. That's
So right,
that's the one sport like I probably follow closer than motocross now is F1. Like, and now,
it's
and like I feel like a lot of people do now because of the Netflix series, but I haven't
of
even
course.
watched that. I just like got into it, and I was like, dude, this is the most badass sport in the world. Like it is so
And
fun
there's
to
more
watch.
technology in that than there is freaking going to the moon. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
it's
it's
crazy.
unobtainium, but it again, you are in that. There's only so many supercross racers
Yeah.
in the world. And going, I went to Las Vegas F1. I worked for Puma out there, and it was really great experience. Rihanna asked me for a hug, by the way.
Oh,
Just putting that out there. I don't know if you saw that photo. She asked me. We
there you
hung
go.
out. I have a Barbados tattoo. She says, "Do you mind having a hug?" I'm a hugger. I said, "No problem, Rihanna." But it was great. But
Can I get that in
be
writing?
we could call it right now.
Yeah.
But all that being said is you were part of that alma mater of how many seasons were you racing? Again, off and on. I know you kind of jumped
Yeah,
around and you
it
had your
was about
surgery.
10, 11 seasons professional.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
yeah,
you
go kind of what you're saying, like with comparison to F1 and moto, like and not enough seats. Like last year when Danny didn't have a seat, I was like heartbroken. I was like, dude, like he's such a talented driver. Like, how is anybody going to pick anybody over him? Well, I mean, other than Max, but like, I don't know. Like, I was just so bummed. But then like, then you see everybody like on the track, and you're like, dude, there's so much talent, and who knows? There's probably hundreds of people behind them that you just don't know their faces yet. Where it's like, there's got to be some type of way for kids or just adults that didn't catch the right break that can
Yep.
have a season to kind of dedicate themselves to.
Yeah, and again, humble brag talking to Jensen Button poolside, former F1 champ. Watch the Braun documentary. Did you watch that yet?
I haven't yet. No.
Oh, bro, we gotta go. Cole's gonna go watch the Braun documentary. Keanu Reeves, Jensen Button talking about the Braun F1 story. It's incredible. It's so good. Um, Man, anything else to add? I don't want to take up any more of your time because anybody listening obviously loves you, wants to know more about EV, wants to know more about Supercross, obviously dirt bikes, but EV bikes, and who's going to win Supercross this year,
Oh man,
24
that's
season.
the most
Are you,
talented field we've ever had. I
I'll let
don't
you think about that. And also,
know.
it's the most talented field we've ever seen in
Yeah.
Supercross. Yeah, we're gonna see you in the booth next to I don't know who's up there, Emig and Carmine. I don't know who's up there
I
anymore.
think
It
it's
always
Carmichael for sure, but I don't remember
Carmichael.
who's next to
Yeah,
him.
Emig bounced around. Shaheen comes and
Yep.
goes, and one, who's gonna win the championship? Two, are we gonna see you at any of the A's? A1 through 5. I'm joking. I know there's
I'm
only
actually, yeah, I'm planning on doing like getting down to either Anaheim 1 or Anaheim 2 or
cool.
San Diego. I went to San Diego last year. It was really fun. So
Oh,
new
yeah.
Snapdragon Stadium was really cool. So,
Oh, yeah,
but
it's that Snapdragon, not Petco anymore. Damn it, dude.
yeah, I know
I love
Petco was so
Petco.
nice, but the Snapdragon one's cool. It's a cool environment. It's like outside and kind of
Very
feels
big.
feels like the old Qualcomm. Like that was the first stadium I raced
Jack
in San
Murphy.
Diego.
Jack Murphy Stadium. Put some
Yeah,
respect on it,
I thought it was
Cole.
Qualcomm.
Prior to that, it was called Jack
Okay.
Murphy
I
Stadium,
only
then
know
it
it as
became
Qualcomm.
Qualcomm.
This is where the generation like we're
Exactly,
feeling
that's
your
why
age is
that
showing.
my back hurts me just saying that because 'cause I'm so old. No, it was Jack Murphy. I grew up on the 3rd baseline with my grandparents going to Jack
Oh,
Murphy, and then I
sweet.
finally announced Stadium Super Trucks, with Robbie Gordon and his whole team. Um, you're dodging the question, who's gonna win the
I
2024
mean, dude,
Supercross
you gotta put
championship?
your money on Jet. Like that's
Okay.
I feel like you're dumb not to. But I'm excited, like one of my old training partners, Chase Sexton, like kind of watching him do what he's done in the 450 class is really cool. But I think like the Honda bike is so good, but I think it didn't really fit him right. So seeing him go to KTM, I think that's going to be a step in the right direction for him, and could be good, could be bad. But I think I don't know. I have faith in like that program, I guess, and Chase. Like he's such a talented rider, so I think that's going to be probably like every night it's going to be Chase and Jet kind of going at it, and
Right.
hopefully, I just hope Chase can stay on 2 wheels this year.
Yeah, and it's all about attrition, man, because we saw Travis taking a pass yesterday in side by sides or this weekend and just slam and the the evolution, not only the bikes, not only the training, but the evolution of racing and racing line and what some of these racers are getting away with
Yeah,
because of equipment and because of, kind of the underlying racing sanctioning body too. I mean, there's
yeah,
some
yeah. That's kind of how it's always going to be with racing. Like you even see it in F1 where it's like the biggest, probably one of the most expensive sports in the world, and you still see like, should that have been a penalty, or should who was right, who was wrong? Like it's always hard to call, but yeah, that's kind of always going to trickle down into every sport, I guess.
All right, any closing notes, man? Check out Cole Seeley on YouTube. Check him out on Instagram, Cole double or it's SEELY. But
Yep.
anything else you want to plug? What do you got cooking? Anything you want to promote or,
Dude, I don't got much cooking right now. I'm designing and having fun with that, and kind of just exploring other avenues in my life. I just kind of stepped away from racing again. I really kind of want to dedicate the next year into like kind of figuring out like who I want to be on all my platforms, whether it be Instagram or YouTube. I really like. I've always kind of not kind of. I've always been really passionate about drifting and cars and stuff like that. So I kind of want to transition more into 4 wheels, and obviously, I'll always have my roots in 2 wheels too. But yeah, I think the future is going to be cool. Next year, I have some pretty cool stuff planned. So
sick? Well, we'll get you out to Nitrocross. With age comes a cage. That's the old Travis TP
yep.
199 adage, and it absolutely makes sense because again, if you're down to have a good time, just be safe and be responsible. But yeah, dude, Cole, thank you so much for joining me here. I really appreciate your insight, your enthusiasm, and everything that you do. Check them out again on YouTube. Check them out on Instagram. All those things. And again, congratulations on the baby coming up, your marriage, and I'll see you at Coeur d'Alene Golf Resort, and we're gonna
Dude,
go
yeah, we'll go play the floating green.
play the floating green.
See how
We're gonna
many
play the
balls I
high.
can lose.
Thank you so much, my man Cole Seeley. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.